Hi, this is Matt from the L.M. Thomas Group, helping business leaders resolve their business frustrations with today's frustration resolve moment. With this series, we're really trying to answer the questions that we hear from leaders on a regular basis about things that are driving them crazy. So today's question is, what is the best way to keep track of our processes? Business leaders often run into problems with their processes. They realize that something is missing or that they haven't documented anything. Their processes are inconsistent because they haven't ever written anything down, or what they've written down is out of sync with what they're actually doing because perhaps they've improved something along the way, but they never wrote down the changes. So when they go back to train somebody, their training documents are old. Most businesses really need 3 layers of documents to help them keep all of their processes in order and moving in the right direction and easily maintained. The first level of documents is what we call a process map. This works at the block diagram or flowchart level, where people can see the big picture. There's not a lot of detail, but they generally know how the flow is supposed to go. The second level is really what we call standard operating procedures. You may have heard of these, the SOPs, something like that, right? And these things are those basic procedures that we do day in and day out, or with some sort of regularity, that talk about how we do them each time. And so that way they're there for reference, and also they're there so that we can keep track of specifics that we need to do to make each process work well. The third layer is what we call forms and checklists. These are things that help us get the actual day-to-day tasks done that fall under these standard operating procedures within this block diagram we've described at the top level. For instance, if requiring a phone number to follow up with somebody is something we have as part of our process, but we don't have a form that prompts us or a checklist that prompts us to ask for a phone number, we'll often forget it just in the moment because we're wrapped up in the very human conversations that happen. But if we have one of those things, then it helps us to actually document what we need to follow up correctly and not lose that business. A lot of businesses struggle with their current documentation because it's either piecemeal, they only have the documents they absolutely had to create, or because they're not maintained well. In other words, we put them together at one point and then things changed and we don't have a good system for keeping things up to date. Or in most cases, it's because a lot of the most critical information is actually never written down at all. And though people know it either intuitively or explicitly, it's never been documented formally. And so what happens is if somebody is unavailable, then that whole process and procedure goes out the window, or you have to call somebody on vacation, or you're calling somebody you had to fire. And that's a problem. Businesses tend to need to look at this if they don't have all 3 sets of these documents and if they're not regularly maintained. If they don't have a process for maintaining the documents, even if they come in and document everything today, they may change something tomorrow and not have an easy way to keep that updated. And so that's what we tend to do, is we come in and not only help to create a process map at that high level, all the way down to the specifics, but we also make sure that we set it up in a way that you're prompted when you change one thing to make sure it fits with everything else in your system. So as long as you have time margin that you're willing to devote to making sure you document something when it happens, then you have a system that's easily maintainable. We know that oftentimes it takes an outside person to come take a look at process because we're all otherwise embedded too deeply into it ourselves to see the things that might be the gaps or might be the places that are missing. Because once again, if we're writing down the things that are between our own ears, then we might not think, oh, somebody else might not have that same assumption as I do. We help as the outside resource to come in and set up a system of documentation and a system of maintaining that documentation to map your processes and keep them up to date. The first step to really getting this solved would be to book a 30-minute consultation with us. It's free. You can book it online. And when you do that, we can start to sit down and start to solve your problem even from that first initial consultation before any money or any commitment has happened.